Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We are talking about Gen Con announcements in today's video. Fantasy Flight Games had some very interesting stuff, including some Marvel and Star Wars announcements. We're going to talk about those in today's video. Gen Con was last week. There's been a lot to process. I've been getting my footage uploaded. A lot of you guys have seen a lot of that already. And one of the big things that was missing this year was the big in-flight report. And so I'm going to talk about that and how they kind of went about doing it and all of the Fantasy Flight Games news from Gen Con, at least the big things that are probably more important to this channel. If you guys are new here to the channel, we are still giving away a lightsaber in the form of a $200 Amazon gift card that you can use for a lightsaber, or you can also offset to use for some gaming. And if you want to have a chance to win that, all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. That's going until the end of the month, so you have plenty of time left to win that. If you guys also haven't already, make sure you check out the links in the video description below. You can get more information from any of the stuff we talk about over at fantasyflightgames.com. If you guys want to learn more about Star Wars gaming, also you can head over to Crabbok.com or just click the subscribe button. Check out my other videos. I talk a lot about tabletop gaming and a lot of Star Wars gaming at that. Yeah, but that's kind of about it. But yes, I think that's it for the admin stuff. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of the video, and it's going to be Fantasy Flight at Gen Con. So, you know, the previous Gen Cons, I guess the last 2 years, we really didn't have much of a Gen Con. The virtual Gen Cons and the virtual conventions were a little different than the big in-person Gen Con. So I feel like this was the first big in-person Gen Con that was back to normal-ish. I guess maybe the new normal. It still wasn't. You know, I feel like it didn't have the same kind of glamour that the 2019 Gen Con had. But of course things are a lot, very different now. A lot of people couldn't make it. There were a lot of staffing issues. A lot of people couldn't attend. A lot of exhibitors couldn't attend. A lot of people who were supposed to demo booths were understaffed. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that COVID still is a thing, and not everybody can travel as easily as they once could. But still, despite all that, it was still a pretty large in-person convention and felt a lot like Gen Con again. So it was very cool to actually be out there and do all of this. But one of the things we didn't have was the in-flight brief. Now, the in-flight report. This probably has a lot to do with the fact that the Star Wars games, which were some of the bigger headlines for the in-flight report, moved over to Atomic Mass Games. And, of course, Atomic Mass Games kind of got their introduction to the world during the 2019 Gen Con in-flight report, where FFG and AMG sort of shared the stage, so to speak. Now, this particular time, Fantasy Flight decided to do a series of mini live streams that went. They did one each day of the convention from the tournament hall, where kind of the big HQ area was set up. It's for both Atomic Mass Games and Fantasy Flight Games, and they had a lot of little different things to announce. Some of the big stuff from Fantasy Flight Games was the Twilight Imperium 25th anniversary. They had a huge Twilight Imperium tournament that was going on. Very, very cool tournament. And you can check out some of that on, if you want to go to Fantasy Flight Games' YouTube channel. They did interviews with the winner. And it was 3 days of Twilight Imperium. Very cool. Twilight Inscription was like early release, and they were playing that a lot. It's a roll and write in the Twilight Imperium universe. One of the things that, is going to appeal to people with that is that it's in the Twilight Imperium universe. It's using kind of like dry erase type of markers, but like kind of bold, like specialty markers. But it looks like it's erasable, so you're not like, it's not like Yahtzee where you run out of pieces of paper and you're done, and then you have to like photocopy some more or whatever. It seems like it's more reusable with like the laminated sheets and everything like that. Again, I'm not a big fan of roll and write type of games, but so it wasn't like, but I like the universe, so it might be worth checking out. I did not sit down and demo Twilight Inscription, but I can definitely see the appeal for something like that. Also, Cosmic Encounter got a new kind of a campaign expansion that they're announcing. There's also more from Marvel Champions LCG. There's a Mojo Mania expansion that was announced, and then they had early of the Mutants and the X-Men stuff that was happening. So, if you wanted to get there and play that, for those of you who are into Marvel Champions, there's definitely more stuff coming out, and all of that is very exciting. You know, which kind of leads into like the final day, the day 4 stream. They announced Star Wars, the deck building game, with really no additional commentary. So really, you know, as they wrapped up the final thing, where you know we're getting, you know, again, a lot of people said, oh, all of Star Wars went to Atomic Mass Games. That's not true. Fantasy Flight Games still has the rights to make Star Wars games. They're just on the board and card side, not on the miniature side. So you can still get your Star Wars games. Look, I mean, because Outer Rim just had its expansion, right? So they're still making. They can still make board games. They can still make card games, and there's an awful lot of cards and card game product in the works. That's certainly what has been going on with you know, all the Marvel Champions stuff. But here we have a new deck building game in the Star Wars universe. What we do know, it's a game by Caleb Grace, as you can see his name is on the bottom there. Of course, it's a little small and difficult to read here, but in the big blow up announcement, it's there. It's also a head-to-head game where you're playing Rebels versus the Empire. So this won't be a type of deck building game where everybody's working together towards a common goal. You know, if you think of like Marvel Champions, which really isn't a deck building game, maybe a closer one would be like Marvel Legendary, which is not Fantasy Flight Games at all. That's like more of like a semi-co-op, and this one sounds like it's more of a head-to-head game. That's certainly, you know, certainly something that you see indicated a little bit by the graphics and stuff like that. You're able to see Luke fighting Vader, so it looks to be very much, you know, Rebels versus Empire. Not like we're working together against the Yuzon Vong or anything like that. Of course, we're gonna have to see more when this comes out. It's definitely going to be very popular. I will definitely cover this game. So as we get more information, stay tuned. There's not a release date. There's not any particular information on this. Like, is it? You know, is the theme, you know, and this is what a lot of people will have questions on, and certainly my questions, is the theme like Jedi duels? Is this going to be more about Luke versus Vader, or is it going to be more about the armies? Is it going to be more of a boots on the ground kind of, like, are you going to be controlling characters, and you know, will the cards, you know, a deck building game is usually you're growing like a force. So are you building like an army in this game, or are you doing all kinds of things from the Star Wars universe? Like, will there be X-Wings on cards? Will there be ground units? Will there be Star Destroyers? You know, is it going to be a little bit more abstract where it has everything in your deck, or is it going to be a little bit more focused where it's more about, you know, ground battles and troops on the ground? Is there, you know, are they like kind of like leaving doors open? And will this be an expandable deck building game, or is it, because notice it's not an LCG, it's not a living card game. You know, deck building games don't necessarily need to have expansions, but a lot of them tend to, and I imagine that will probably depend to some degree on the game's initial success. It's certainly not the first card game for Star Wars that FFG has done. There are other card games, like, you know, there have been LCGs for Star Wars. There have been standalone games for Star Wars. There was like that little Rebels versus Empire square box, that really small box card game. And what's the size of the box? Is this like a deck box that we're looking at here? Is it like a single deck? You know, or is this like a larger box that has a board and other utilities, or is it going to be just cards? There's a whole lot of options for things like that. So there's a lot of things that we don't know about, and my dog is going crazy. But the other thing to think about is we also have Marvel Dagger, another board game that was announced by Fantasy Flight Games. Now this one's kind of getting away from everything being so much of it being card focused. This one is actually a board game, and it stands for Defense Alliance for Global and Galactic Emergency Response. And it is a board game. Chris Gerber did announce this kind of off the cuff. I don't think it was planned, so this one is probably maybe the farthest out of everything that was announced. But this is a board game in a line of other board games. They're going to be making, not necessarily in the same line, but he did confirm FFG is definitely working on multiple more board games. So there's lots more board games coming. I've always really, really liked FFG's strength when it comes to board games. Games like Outer Rim, games like Star Wars Rebellion, games like Twilight Imperium. Really, really great board games have come out of Fantasy Flight Games. Or Battlestar Galactica, or the Arkham version is also really cool. So I like a lot of board games that come out of Fantasy Flight. So I'm actually really excited about this. You know, the last Marvel, a couple of Marvel games that Fantasy Flight has come out with, I haven't really impressed me that much. I wasn't a big fan of Marvel Champions, and I wasn't really even interested in the X-Men Mutant Uprising or Insurgency or whatever that other game was. You know, for whatever reason, it just didn't do it for me. But this one, who knows? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. All we can really gather is that this one, because it says for global and galactic emergency response, makes me think that this is going to have it kind of be open enough. It's not going to be like a typical ground fight like X-Men versus Magneto or something like that. This one probably is going to involve heroes across the whole planet from all of the different like subgenres. So Avengers, potentially Spider-Verse, potentially, definitely. I think Guardians of the Galaxy and Sword and Shield, and basically anybody who does go into space, because the galactic, I think, is the most important keyword. That second G in that acronym is going to be important, because we're probably going to have lots of different galactic threats. Captain Marvel will almost certainly be a part of this game based on the acronym, right? So that's my guess. But I could be totally wrong. I want to hear some of your guesses. What do you gather from this name like Dagger? Defense Alliance for Global and Galactic Emergency Response. I mean, with a name like that, what can you really gather? Like, is it... It sounds to me like it's going to be a cooperative board game, and I kind of hope it's... If it's going to be cooperative, I kind of hope it's only semi-co-op, because I always like for there to be a winner. And so I would rather it be a game that has like where one player wins and, you know, everybody else doesn't win, but with maybe a mutual fail condition, like, oh, you guys all, nobody pushed the red button, so Galactus ate your whole planet, you guys all lose. Like, I'm okay with stuff like that, but who knows? There's really not much more information other than the name and the logo that we're given here. So it's, I guess it's anybody's guess. I'm curious, though, if since the logo is based in white, if we're going to have a white box, because a lot of... because white box is going to be interesting, because a lot of gamers... sometimes have hygiene issues, and I wonder if, like, as this game's been out for a while, how many people somebody brings it to the table, if you're going to get a lot of fingerprints and dirty handprints all over a bright white box. I wonder if a white box is a bad idea for board games. I don't know, but that's just something that you know, like maybe more of just a stereotype that needs to go away, because I meet fewer and fewer gamers that have hygiene issues. But then again, you never know. Sometimes at game nights, people are eating at the same time, and then you just get that pizza grease on your hand. You know, how many of you have been to a game night where everybody's eating pizza and you're still kind of playing and eating when it's not your turn and stuff like that? And I'm like, oh, so like I think of white boxes, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like a great idea. But I don't know if that's, again, it's not the box art. This is just the logo, so it could be anything. I guess we'll have to say. Or is it based on Cloak and Dagger? Right? Is it? Yeah, I don't think so, because it's an acronym and not necessarily like the name, but who knows? But I'm curious what you're most excited about. There's definitely some articles and stuff still going on fantasyflightgames.com, and I haven't really covered a whole lot of Fantasy Flight Games content lately, since everything has transitioned over to Atomic Mass. But it is important to know Fantasy Flight Games has still got the rights to make Star Wars and Marvel stuff, even though AMG is still doing the miniature stuff. And some of the board games that have come out of Fantasy Flight Games are still in my favorite games of all time, like Twilight Imperium and Star Wars Rebellion. Amazing, amazing games. So it gives me high hopes for games like Marvel Dagger, and even games like Deck Builders, which aren't necessarily my favorite games, but we're still going to check them out because it's Star Wars, and it's probably going to be a good time. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you liked what you saw. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and share the video, and check me out on the socials, at Crabbok almost everywhere. There's links down in the video description below. I will talk to you guys later. May the Force be with you. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible, so thank you for your continued support. I will see you guys later. Live long and prosper. May the Force be with you. Be excellent to each other. So say we all. Always wash your socks. Have a great day. Goodbye there.